This film used to be the worst Star Wars movie. Used to be. Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Directed by George Lucas, starring Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, and Natalie Portman. The film starts off with a bang, as separatist forces try to kill Senator Amidala as she returns to Coruscant to vote on the Military Creation Act. Obi-Wan and myself are called in to protect Padme from assassins who use every girl's weakness against her. Big creepy bugs. After our little game of centipede in Padme's quarters, we head off to Naboo as Obi tracks down the bounty hunter responsible for the failed attack. Now, most of this movie was filmed on green screen, something director Jon Favreau was praised for in his version of Jungle Book. So why is it the same critics that praised Favreau rip on George Lucas for pioneering the technology in the first place? Anyway, when Obi is having trouble finding our Mystery Man bounty hunter, he stops in to see everyone's favorite space muppet, Master Yoda, who is essentially the Star Wars equivalent of Sesame Street. A puppet voiced by Frank Oz, teaching small children. A problem with all the prequels was the cool villain curse. By that I mean, each film had an interesting villain that didn't get nearly enough screen time. Today's villain cameo was Jango Fett, played to perfection by Tamora Morrison. Horror legend Christopher Lee also gives a stellar performance as Count Dooku. But let's all be honest here, he's basically Saruman in space. It's still pretty weird to see Dracula in a Star Wars film. We had Professor Van Helsing and Peter Cushing, so it was about time the bad guys got their turn at bat, so to speak. Jar Jar is notable by his absence in episodes 2 and 3, showing a key difference between George Lucas and Disney Lucasfilm. Despite his personal love for the character, when fans had a negative response to Jar Jar, Lucas used him less rather than more. This is just one of the many lessons Disney could learn from this great man. Many people have complained about the love story in this film, saying I came off as awkward, but give me a break. I never had much time to work on my people skills. I grew up surrounded by emotionally detached warrior monks who only let me out of the temple to resolve conflicts with a lightsaber. And if you've ever been in love before, I'm sure you've said some pretty cheesy, embarrassing things too. John Williams once again delivers a phenomenal score. The love theme is moving and beautiful, while the score for When I Went Bananas on the Sand People is truly chilling. Speaking of sand people, this is the perfect time to address one of the other many problems with Star Wars lately: the need to explain things that need no explanation. They wrote that the only reason the Sand People attacked Luke was because they somehow knew he was the son of a Jedi who slaughtered an entire village years ago. First of all, I didn't even know Luke was my son at the time, so how did they? Second, I didn't exactly introduce myself, I just started lobbing off heads. And third, even if I had introduced myself, I killed them all, so who told this story? Now, as much as I want to stick up for good old George here, that droid foundry scene is undeniably terrible. Between the ridiculous slapstick and an overly limber computer-generated C-3PO, this scene should have never seen the light of day. I imagine it was there for the kids to downplay some of the more violent moments in this film to retain the PG rating. Speaking of violence, Episode 2 continues the Star Wars tradition of fighting alien movie monsters, with the exciting arena sequence on Geonosis, harkening back to the Roman Colosseum and even paying homage to Ray Harryhausen's creature features as Obi-Wan does the classic spear jab at a giant space praying mantis. Things start to look pretty bad for our heroes, but Mace Windu shows up to save the day. The sight of an army of Jedi igniting their lightsabers is truly impressive. And I know Jango looks cool and all, but dying quick seems to run in his family. He's supposed to be the greatest bounty hunter in the galaxy, but when he goes up against Master Windu, the guy just goes to pieces, losing his head in all the commotion. Now when the battle turns south for Space Saruman, He boogies out of there quick, and that's when the film really kicks into high gear, with one of the prequel's signature epic lightsaber duels. I do pretty good on my own for a bit, until Dooku disarms me, but luckily Yoda shows up to give me a hand. And I gotta say, you wouldn't think a CGI Muppet could look cool fighting with a lightsaber, but I have to admit, it's pretty entertaining to watch. Dookie pulls the old he who fights and runs away routine, leaving Yoda to save me and Obi-Wan from being crushed by a giant pillar. After all the shooting stops, the film ends with a romantic wedding at sunset, and Bail Organa feeling just a little bit blue that the Republic has been plunged into galactic war. On an artistic note, if you'll notice, much of this film's color palette has orange sunset tones, evoking the feeling that the sun is setting not only on the Republic, but on the Jedi Order itself. Showing George Lucas even uses the color palette of his film to tell this story. Episode 2 is probably the weakest of the prequels, but aside from that ridiculous droid slapstick, it is still thoroughly entertaining in its own right. And like all Star Wars films under Lucas, it fundamentally changed movie making forever, advancing technology as well as the overall craft of visual effects. For its intrigue, epic lightsaber duels, stunning score, and groundbreaking effects work, I give Attack of the Clones 3 out of 5 Death Stars. The Emperor is not as forgiving as I am. Tune in next week as I review Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This has been Vader Reviews. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications, and follow me on Twitter. Join the Empire today. You do not yet realize your importance. Share these videos, and together we will rule the internet. And always remember, you don't know the power of the dark side.